Good evening. My name's Bethsheba Ashe and I'm the author of 2 books on the Merkabah. The first is called Aleister Crowley's Secret Temple. The second one's called Chariot. Now, Chariot's distinctly different from Aleister Crowley's Secret Temple because in the first book I look at what Aleister Crowley did with the Merkabah after he discovered at the turn of the century. Whereas with Chariot we go back as far as 1100 years before the Common Era, and we look at the birth of the alphabet and what the Jews did with it traditionally. Now I'm going to show you a picture of the Merkabah here. And it's actually of the Merkabah wheel. Merkabah means chariot, so by Merkabah wheel we mean chariot wheel. Another name for the Merkabah traditionally was the 7 palaces. So this is the 7 palaces, clearly marked on the diagram. These here are the spokes of the wheel, or the paths between the palaces. Now, if you're thinking that this looks a little like the Tree of Life, well, that's because it really is. The Tree of Life was developed from the chariot and extrapolated. Let me show you another picture. So here you have the chariot wheel, or the 7 palaces, as it existed up until the Middle Ages. And then with the birth of Kabbalah, it underwent a change. The 7 palace at the top there was split into 3 Sephiroth, Kether, Chokmah and Binah. And the first palace at the bottom there was split into 2 further Sephiroth, which was Yesod and later on Malkuth. Now there were various Talmudic and other injunctions against studying the Merkabah, at least with other people. One could study the Merkabah if you could find it for yourself, but what you couldn't then do is go and chat about it with a fellow Jewish man who had also studied the Merkabah and discovered it. So this meant that the invention of Kabbalah was very important because by revealing the palaces as the Tree of Life, it meant that a certain section of Kabbalah could be talked about quite openly. However, the 7 palaces themselves were kept secret, although there is reference to them in a book of the Zohar called the Book of Concealed Mystery, and the reference is put into a riddle. So basically, if you solve the riddle in the Book of Concealed Mystery, you find the way to convert the Tree of Life back into the 7 palaces so you can study it independently. Now, because I've said that the 7 palaces was something studied by the Merkabah mystics, you're probably going to think that the 7 palaces are as old as the Merkabah mystics, or that the Merkabah mystics invented them, or that it began with Ezekiel at the earliest. But actually, Merkabah mysticism had been going on by then for a very long time. Close analysis of the Merkabah wheel show that the number set present on the wheel is actually intended for the Ktav Ivri, or Paleo-Hebrew script. This would correlate with the 7 palaces being as old as the Torah, because we find that the Torah was written with the number system employed on the 7 palaces. And this correlates with a little bit of evidence which was found the earliest known texts from the Torah. It's the Aaronic blessings, and they were written on a little silver scroll which is from the 7th century, and that's the oldest copy we have of a piece of the Torah. So it really indicates that it was originally written in Ktav Ivri. Now, the 7 palaces in Jewish culture were thought to be imported from the Canaanite culture, which was a slightly older one, and in that culture you have the 7 palaces of El, and there are also mythology recorded in Ugaritic literature to do with the Baal legends. The Gematria of El is 31, and El is very much linked to the planet Saturn that was observable in the night sky. This slowest of planets, orbiting planets around the Sun. Of course, in ancient times they would have been observing it moving around the Earth, which is slightly different, that's sidereal. But in ancient times they would have looked and they would have said, Saturn, it takes 31 years to orbit. Now actually it takes 30, but the way we calculate it is different, because when it comes to measurement of time, to use Jewish numbers, there is no 0. So that means when you are born, you are automatically 1. So 30 years to us, which uses the 0, would be 31 years to them, and we call these ordinal years. Now, multiples of 31 are very important when it comes to the 7 palaces, because you have 217, crucial number on the 7 palaces, which is 7 times 31. And you also see the number 248, which is 8 times 31, coming up as well for consideration. There are 3 ways where you can see 217 on the 7 palaces, and we're just going to show you some pictures here. As you can see, if you count the letters, the value of all of the letters of the palaces, so that's Beth plus the 2 Alepphs plus the 2 Daleths plus the He and the Resh, then that's 217. We also have 217 when we calculate the spoke which comes down from the 7th palace to the axis, which is the Resh at the centre. So those 2 palaces, and with the path, if we add the Beth, Gimel, He, Sein and Resh together, that also equals 217. The third method by which we see the 217 emerging is if we calculate a gate path. Now, there are 2 types of gates able to be formed on the 7 palaces. The first gate is when you get the path or spoke, or maybe a section of the circumference, and you add the number assigned to that path along with the number of the palaces at either side. So if we looked at the path given the Chet, for instance, then the Chet would be 8. To the left of it you have the Aleph, which is 1. To the right of it you have the Beth, which is 2. So 8, 9, 10, 11. So in the first instance, 11 is the gate number for that path. Now, in the second instance, what you do is you add that gate number, the 11th, to the opposite, the gate number of the opposite path on the wheel. So if you have Chet there, well, it's actually backwards to forwards, Chet there, and you've got the opposite path there, and then you get the final total. And in the second instance, on the path of Cheth, then, and obviously on the opposing path as well, then the second gate number is 217 as well. Now these multiples of 31, being 7 times 31 being 217 and 8 times 31 being 248, could be used together to create ancient pi, because 248 divided by 217 equals 1.142857, and by simply adding 2 you get 3.142857, which is ancient pi. 248 is also the Gematria number of the name of Abraham, and 217 is the number for the Garden of Eden and for Ezekiel's wheels.